Hello, this is Matt Harris with the Magento Association Podcast. Today we have Jakub Winkler of qoliber on. I hope I said all that right. Welcome, Jakub.
Yeah, nice to be here.
So, Jakub, how long have you been working in Magento? What's your background with the platform?
Oh, that's going to be a long story. So, because I started in Magento basically in 2011. So it's going to be like 14 years, 15 years probably next year in February. So I've been there since Magento 1. I think the version I started working was on 1.6. I started as a developer at Creativity in Poznań. They had like the branch in Poznań and the team was located here. And then I also did work. I worked as a freelancer. Then I moved to Snowdog, and I got so much work as a freelancer that I started doing my own agency. Started hiring developers. We were under a different name, but the name. It's funny. The name of the company was so long that even nobody remembers that. It was Q Solution Studio. But last year, I decided to rebrand the company to qoliber, and we started with the new brand last year. So it's been a crazy ride in the last 14 years. But I would say we are in a really steady, fun place right now. The community is moving. Magento is moving. So kind of excited what is ahead of us. But it's been a bumpy road, as probably everybody in Magento can say.
Yeah. So when you got your start, were you an engineer?
What do you mean?
Were you a developer? Were you doing back-end coding or what was your primary? How did you get started as a developer?
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I started coding when I was 14.
Yeah.
So my actually goal was to be like a game developer, but there were no good tutorials, no market, nothing to learn. And my English wasn't that good as it is now right now. So it was hard to get started. Even as a game developer, you had to be very good at math. And we are talking about like college math. Mm-hmm. So I started as a developer when I was 14. I was doing a lot of Turbo Pascal applications for custom clients, then moved to Delphi development, then hit the college, did some customized applications as well. Took some detour in a different industry, but that's a different story, maybe for a Netflix psychological drama. And then after that industry, I get back to coding and I started as a backend developer at Creativity 14 years ago. So okay. I was always a backend developer, but I'm also used to be a kind of full stack developer because I always say that when 20 years ago, 25 years ago, everybody was like a full stack developer. You had to do everything from JavaScript, CSS, HTML, custom coding. There was no like huge specialization in front end, Tailwind CSS, or Burma CSS. It was a different times back then.
Yeah. So you came in as a back-end developer. Now you're the owner of an agency. Sounds like you've seen a lot over the last 14 years. You made it through Magento 1 to Magento 2. So congratulations. We've my agency saw that change as well. So when it comes to the Magento Association and the Magento platform and open source technology, kind of how do you see the future? Obviously, things have changed a lot in the last 4 years. Where do you kind of see the role of Magento in the ecosystem? And let's say your role or your agency's role in that ecosystem over like the next few years?
Yeah, that's a tough question. Regarding Magento, in the next 4 years, I still see a lot of improvements for Magento and a way for the Magento as a platform to grow. At the same time, all the SaaS platforms, I don't want to name any of them, but they have a huge marketing budget and they grew a lot, right? From smaller SaaS platforms, they become like a huge monstrosities. That it's hard for us to even fight these days. At least that's what some people do. And that's when open source community comes in. So I believe that for Magento to be present in this e-commerce ecosystem, to be present on the market, we as a community, all the agencies or developer have to be like united. And that's what I think will make everybody, I don't want to say survive, but sometimes when you look at the market, when you talk to friends who run other agencies, it's really it has become really tough these days. The tides are changing, right? We can see a lot of merchants actually returning to the open source platforms because you know how they say the grass is always greener on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And the SaaS platforms kind of hit the market in the right time because it was easy to set up each store, very easy to maintain them, no overhead with, installing patches or hundreds of hours required to the upgrades. So from the merchant point of view, they looked really well. But most of the merchants who I talk to who are returning to Magento, they say it very clearly that it's impossible to customize those SaaS platforms to fit their business needs. And this is when I think that the open source shines. This is when I believe open source is still a lot of areas, both for improvement, but also it's great for business. Because the more customized your business is, the more processes or customized solutions you have in your business, at some point it's impossible to do this on the SaaS platform. You need either a customized solution or build your own solution on the open source. I personally believe there's a bright future ahead of us, but it's going to be a really, I would say, hard climb to get there, because we are being attacked everywhere, right? Not just from one SaaS platform. We are being attacked from multiple SaaS platforms. And as a Magento developer, we know how the platform was many years ago. And we do have to say that sometimes we do have to agree with what those platforms are saying about Magento. But it used to be true, right? So what we need to do to make sure that in the 4, maybe 6 years, we still have a lot of work to do. And Magento, maybe you are on a 2.4, 5, maybe on 2.6. We need to acknowledge those mistakes that we all did as a community working with Magento. But I believe we need to start debunking the myths that everybody's saying about Magento, that it's slow, that it's overly complex. It's no longer true. Today, it really doesn't matter what platform you pick. I think, and nobody will convince me otherwise, Magento is the most flexible platform on the market that there is. You can do anything with that platform. You can customize it to the business way you need it to. And none of these SaaS solutions will give you this sense of flexibility.
So there's some myths. There's also some, I would say there's some people that have acquired SaaS platforms and have buyer's regret, let's say. Mm-hmm. So let's maybe dig in on that a little bit. So you're learning about some merchants that have come back to open source or migrating off of SaaS to open source. What would you say is some of their rationales, and maybe what was some of the false promises of SaaS, or what did they learn while they were on these SaaS platforms?
It's very interesting because the merchants we are actually migrating from SaaS to Magento, the main reason was the support he got from the SaaS platform. And you could say it was no support at all, because all the merchant got was like an AI bot. So he was never able to talk to a real developer or to other, even human being, regarding issues with their store. It was always like some bot just giving vague answers, not explaining anything and not sorting out the issues. And also the merchant started asking some questions like, where is my data? Who owns my data? Who has access to my data? And he never got any answers. And we are starting to seeing, for example, Shopify, they will be integrating or using some sort of integration with ChatGPT. So I think it raises a valid question. What sort of data will be shared with ChatGPT for it to learn, to produce better AI agents and so on? So the main concern for the merchants was he was felt unappreciated, that he was just just a line in an Excel spreadsheet and it was impossible to talk to anybody. And at some point it was hard even to make some customizations and fully customize the platform to their needs. And with Magento, with a couple extensions and some work we do at qoliber, we were able to achieve all the business needs they actually need. And as the last point, it actually turned out it might be even cheaper to run Magento Open Source than a SaaS platform. So the cost of ownership, I think, has never been lower with Magento, because everybody knows how to do, well, maybe not everybody, but people know how to do Magento well, where to host it. So the cost of ownership of Magento can be lower than SaaS. And that's also one of the reasons why some merchants will start reconsidering, as you say, they will have this buyer's regret.
Yeah, I'm finding the cost is also more evident in the kind of mid-market, and particularly in B2B. So let's say you're a distributor and you're doing millions of dollars of orders, but you're working with thin margins. It's hard to give away revenue share when your margins are so thin. But an open source platform often allows you to do volume without a dramatic increase in cost. So you can actually get the benefits of scale, and you're not necessarily going to have increased costs that are the equivalent of your increased revenue. So it's much easier to get incremental gains, I think, on an open source platform. And I think a lot of businesses are learning this the hard way.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. With the open source platform, you can actually set the cost to a fixed monthly maximum that the business is willing to spend on customizations. But with the SaaS platforms, it is always like a percentage, not from every transaction. And what people don't talk about with the SaaS platforms, you have those multiple applications you can install to your SaaS solution. And each of those smaller applications or smaller modules also cost like 0.1%, 0.2%. I used to work with a merchant from United Kingdom. They are on Adobe Commerce, and they did consider switching to Shopify because they thought it would be cheaper. Now, we are talking about the merchant with 100 million pounds revenue, right, a year. And when they started implementing or calculating the cost of running Shopify, it turned out to be 7% with all the customizations and module and applications and the payment fee, which was, I think, 3% back then. So it was just before COVID. But even if it was like 4%, it would take 4 million just to run an e-commerce site. And let's be honest, with 4 million a year, I can't even think what you could achieve with open source with 4 million a year.
Well, you could support a dev team on that.
Yeah.
Right? Basically, a big one. Like you could, and in addition to the hosting and everything else. So, I know that the Shopify is going after, I should say the SaaS platforms. They're all doing it after that kind of mid-market and enterprise B2B space. But it's going to be an interesting battle, I think, over the next few years. One of the things I like to talk about is, or I'm curious what your thoughts are, is with an open source platform, there's a community that supports it, and there's merchants that use it. So there's a lot of stakeholders involved. And it's not I think it gives the platform a lot of durability. It's kind of hard to kill off an open source platform if people are using it every day. You can't, there is no entity that can just turn it off and say, okay, or sell it. Essentially, the open source is like the community controls it, the community owns it, the community can kind of do what they want. And if the businesses and the merchants are benefiting from it, then how do you replace something like that without everyone at the same time, abandoning it?
Yeah, true. But there are a couple open source platforms. We can take a look at, for example, Elasticsearch, when they try to make the license change and do Redis storage. They try to change the licensing policy, and immediately the community created like a fork of those solutions, right? So the open source would still be there. It might just be a different name, right? Even with Magento, right? We have MageOS. Because back during when COVID started in 2021, it was like the most crazy period of the pandemic. We didn't know where we stand with Adobe, right? The community didn't feel appreciated, let's just put it this way, and decided to do the fork of Magento to make sure that the platform thrives and is easier to maintain. Now, right now, the situation is different. I think MageOS and Adobe and Magento Association tried to work together to make sure that we have the beloved platform we have. So the open source, as you mentioned, it will never disappear, because even if somebody would say they will pull the plug on an open source platform, the code is there, right? You can still get the old version. And if the community is big and involved and engaged in managing the platform, it will still be there, maybe under just a different name. But we all have to understand that the managing and running the open source platform as Magento or like maybe WordPress or type of free, it requires also vast resources. And I think we need to give credit to Adobe, because they put a lot of work into managing Magento Open Source as well. And we don't talk about that, but they do everything related to managing the platform security, which is a huge amount of work. And we don't even realize how much. They assure the PHP language compatibility, which, trust me, nobody in our community would like to do that because of the complexity and how hard it is. So even though it is an open source platform, at some point, there is always like maybe an entity or a couple entities managing or financing it, right? You can look at Firefox Foundation. It gets grants from Google. We can, as an open source, we can take a look at Linux, which I think Microsoft is giving 20 million a year. Well, I don't want to put the wrong number, but it's also giving money to manage the open source. So once the open source reaches a certain stage, it requires an entity to run it. And I think that will be the goal of Magento Association. At least I hope so. So maybe maybe that's a dream. Maybe we can take Magento out of Adobe and put it into Magento Association. But I know it's very hard, or maybe even at this point impossible. But open source thrives with good people because there are way too many people, sometimes whose lives and livelihood depend on it.
Yeah. And, you mentioned Linux. I think, vast majority of websites run on open source software today. So it's not like it's going away anytime soon. It probably will never go away, because as soon as, a private corporate closed system tries to take over in that space, a new organic option that's open source just emerges. And we've seen this over and over again. It's kind of an organic process. What I like about it too is how it engages the younger developers. So, young people can come in, get their hands on software, start playing around with it. And there's a nurturing aspect to open source for young minds that I think is really healthy for the entire ecosystem. That I think sometimes also gets kind of overlooked.
Yeah, but my personal remark on this would be, we don't put enough, I don't want to say pressure, but we don't maybe emphasize this enough to young minds, how to get connected with open source, and that it is actually a place to learn, to grow, and to share. Because a lot of young developers I talk to or I train, they know something about the open source, but they are never like getting involved into, like, I would say, open source spirit, or how to write their own software or create their own applications as open source, and maybe at some point start getting finance to support those solutions. Because even PHP at some point started as a one-person project, right?
Yeah. So did Linux.
So did Linux, and so did Git, for example.
I mean, I think that there's young people that maybe, or don't want to really dig in and become a heavy duty developer. But I mean, Git in particular is taken off like crazy. I mean, the code repositories and people involved in those globally has been a massive success, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the things that if I was talking to a merchant who was thinking about the future of their business, I think a lot of it stems from, how do you see the technology fitting into your business? Do you say technology is something that just performs a small function and that can live kind of outside of your organization as long as it's doing what you need it to do? Or are you going to become a little bit more of a technological leader in your space and trying to differentiate yourself by bringing a unique customer experience or integrating with some older business systems and business logic and business rules, and adapting that to fit in to meet the needs of new buyers. Sometimes it's not as easy as just plugging on a SaaS solution. Sometimes the technology solutions need to be really woven into your business. And, that sometimes takes more time and more thought, but it has potentially more lasting long-term value. And I think we work in the space of a lot of older manufacturers and distribution companies in the United States. And there's a older way of doing business, and then there's an emerging way of doing business. And sometimes getting from the current state to the future state of those businesses takes a lot of time and a lot of thought and partnership and consulting, to get and to know what's the right sequence to do things. I think what's interesting, and I don't know if you've had this experience yourself, but the rate at which you evolve things needs to kind of match what your business is capable to do today versus tomorrow versus down the road. Sometimes you don't want to do it all at once. You want to kind of do it in small steps. And what I like about open source is it gives you that flexibility to kind of meet the needs of a sprint, and then you could pause and you can normalize that cost, and then you can look to make incremental improvements as you evolve as a business. So the technology kind of comes with you and evolves with you.
Fully agree on that. The problem is that the merchants mostly are not non-technical. And I don't think we talk about the technological depth that comes with open source, because I do agree with the approach that you do, like granular or small steps, and you develop and build your technology or manage your business on open source technology. But we don't put enough, again, pressure on the technological depth that comes with it. So, for example, there are still merchants on very customized PHP 5 platforms, e-commerce platforms built many years ago. And trust me, nobody that I know would even touch those platforms to begin with or to do anything. So what is important to know, if you are running your organization on an open source software, you always need to put maybe 10, maybe 15% of the budget or the developer's time to manage technological debt, because it is actually like a financial debt. If you don't manage it properly, it will create like a spiral of technological debt that will, at some point, somebody in the company will say, hey, let's just get rid of it and just go to a SaaS solution, because the amount of work we need to put to manage it, it's overwhelming. So in my opinion, this is something we really need to address as a community when we talk about Magento, when you talk about open source, because there's, even with Magento ecosystem, there are still stores on Magento 2.1, 2.2. And I don't know a single agency that would say, okay, we can try to develop new features on this. Everybody right now is saying, no, we need to get rid of it and start from scratch with the same features. And it's actually faster and cheaper to do it this way than managing the technological debt. So open source, it's great. It allows you freedom. It allows you to customize the things you need to, but don't forget about the technological debt. If you don't put enough effort and attention to it, managing open source will become tricky and very costly.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think of it as, owning a house kind of versus renting a house. And if you are going if you're going to buy a house, you want to know what the deferred maintenance is. So you're going to investigate, is the plumbing up to speed, up to date? Is the electrical up to date? How does the foundation look? Is the paint peeling? Is the roof new? So these, they call it, deferred maintenance in a home. I think technical debt is very similar to that. Like you have, are you version current? Is your data clean? Are you keeping it clean? Do you have a process for that? So it's a combination of both the technology being up to date, like current versions, et cetera, but also updating processes. It's the human side of the business as well.
Yeah,
right.
I agree.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think that we don't want to, sugarcoat, how easy this is. It's particularly depending on what the type of business you have. building an e-commerce platform is going to take time, and it's going to take some maintenance, and it's going to take some investment. But it's important to kind of understand what the trade-offs are with different platforms, and they all kind of have their trade-offs, right?
Yeah, that's true. But what I've learned over the last couple of years, because I'm also doing some consulting work on the side for larger and enterprise entities, and I used to be like a senior architect consultant in one of I cannot say the name of the company because of the NDA. But what I find surprising is that the bigger the business, they only focus on delivering new features, but nobody's paying attention to this technological depth that I just mentioned. So it is also important to have somebody who's managing the open source project to be able to stand out and say, guys, sometimes we need to take a step back, clean the things we did. Because the larger the project, the bigger the focus is on delivering new features. We need new features. And people forget that sometimes you also have to clean up things that were done bad in the past. But it's also part of the technological depth, but also part of the development process that we also need to talk about, and open eyes of IT directors or business owners, that you cannot neglect this technological depth in the project. And I know I'm repeating myself right now, but I learned that nobody talks about it. And I wish to change it.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think if you use that example of a company looking at going to a SaaS platform from Adobe Commerce and the costs, there is, in those savings that there's a budget for addressing technical debt. You just have to be disciplined about it. You have to normalize that as part of maintenance, basically.
But if you do it well, it's like 10 to 15% of the base, all the development work in each month. So if you do it regularly, then it's a really small cost. If you don't do it, then it grows to the point it might not be manageable. And I actually also consulted for one company. The project was so delayed, and they decided to bring more developers to the project. And I just quoted the IBM guy. If you bring developers to a project that is delayed, it will be delayed even further. And that's exactly what happened. Because and I actually canceled the contract with that company because, frankly, nobody listened to what I had to say. But I know that the project is still delayed, and they just bringing more people. And I was like, no, the project should be halted. The main developers should be in charge of cleaning the mess, and then we can start bringing new people to manage new features. But that was a whole very interesting experience, I would say.
Well, we used to use the analogy of, one woman can have a baby in 9 months. You can't hire 9 women to have one baby in 1 month, right? So
there are some project managers who believe this is possible, but that's a good comparison.
Yeah. So qoliber, what are you guys doing right now? What's your why don't you give me a little overview of your agency? What do you have, like, core expertise or types of businesses that you like to work with?
Well, we are Magento development agency, but we are in the process of transition to be a solution provider to agencies like us. So we are having to development a lot of solutions that improves the development processes, improves Magento in many ways. And so we are in the process of transition in doing this. So we are right now 50% Magento development agency, and we work with small and medium-sized merchants. And we used to work with corporate clients, but it's not for my nerves. I like things to be done efficient, fast, and maybe in a friendly manner. With enterprise clients, sometimes it takes 3 weeks just to organize a meeting for 5 people, and nothing is discussed or done or agreed upon on those meetings. So for me, I don't want to offend anybody, but working with enterprise clients is a waste of time, to be honest.
Do you work with other agencies?
Sometimes yes. Sometimes we outsource a couple of our developers. Sometimes we outsource developers to our projects. because of the current workload. But what makes us kind of unique as qoliber is that the entire team who's been with me has been with me for the last 14 years. So once I started hiring people, the whole team that we started, the first developers who I hired who are trained are still with us. Our main focus right now is performance optimization for Magento. We created our own set of modules, set of skills, set of configuration options for the server that improves Magento performance, in the end lowering the cost of ownership. We were actually able to reduce price of hosting for one merchant from £6,000 a month to $400 a month because of the optimization we did. I don't want to get to details how bad the project was coded, but once we optimized everything, we were able to narrow down cost like over 90%. So that's our area of expertise. And besides that, we do Hoover migrations. I personally love to travel to conferences and educate everybody about Magento, both on the coding level and on the business level, because I'm still active developer. I still work with the code because I like to do it. And I love to have my skills sharp all the time. So no developers I hire or anybody else can trick me into saying things that I don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we do. We are involved with Magento Association. We help them with creating modules for Magento Association to manage events, case studies, and we are in the middle of creating professional service listing module also for agencies. So we are heavily involved with the open source. We have 27 open source modules on our GitHub repository used by a lot of agencies and developers that reduce certain parts related to development, like creating patches, a couple smaller modules for that improve experience in the admin interface. And I've actually wrote one of the extensions that is available at qoliber GitHub repository to migrate data from Magento 1 to Magento 2. It can import over 1 million orders, couple million clients, and 100,000 products in 10 minutes to Magento 2. So that's the fastest open source solution that we built. It's not perfect. It's because it was based on the projects we used to migrate from Magento 1 to Magento 2. So everybody wants to chip in and create a pull request for a couple of missing features. I'll be happy to do it. Our goal is to reduce the cost of ownership of Magento for merchants. This is what we want to do by shifting our business function, the way we want to do as qoliber, and become a solution provider. But we will do it in a different way. We'll be working with merchants only through agencies. We don't want to work with the merchants directly because there are too many variations of Magento versions, extensions from multiple vendors that might be hard. Let's say we get 50 merchants. So managing 50 projects with multiple Magento configurations, extensions, hosting, that would require huge manpower. So we decided to do it a little bit different and work with agencies. And we'll be transitioning. Hopefully in a couple of months, that will be our core business. And we'll be able to say that we no longer do Magento development. We are into solution provider.
Got it. Well, interesting. I can't wait to hear more about that. Sounds like you got a lot going on.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right, Jakub, I'm going to leave it there unless there's something else you want to say. But that was a pretty good overview.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I can only maybe ask or request the listeners and people watching the video that if you want to see the open source or Magento 2 fries, we all need to chip in.
Yeah.
Right? We reached the time where we can't just wait for Adobe or somebody else to do all the work. So that's why we as qoliber are very heavily invested in part of our time is actually dedicated to helping Magento Open Source and Magento Association. Ola from our team is part of the marketing team, just managing a lot of marketing content, preparing the content for Magento Association. But we need more people.
Yeah.
We need more agencies. If you don't want to provide or, support Magento Association or MageOS Association with money, there are plenty of ways you can also do it, right? And you can go to Magento Association LinkedIn profile And there's a small interview I did with Matthias Schreiber, how to contribute to Magento Association, because every little bit helps. If you watch a cool video regarding something about Magento, hit the subscribe button, reshare the post on LinkedIn, because we need to Magento content to be visible again. And if we all chip in, if we all, let's say, join hands together in a one big circle, our outreach is way higher than any SaaS platform on the market. And I think that we need to remember that if everybody contributes, everybody wins. But if nobody contributes, then everybody loses. And so hopefully we'll see more people involved, contributing in many ways to see Magento grow and shine again.
Yeah. Well, great. I'll leave it there. I don't have a better way to leave it. So thank you for saying that. I appreciate you coming on the podcast. Appreciate everything you do for the community, and Ola, by the way. She's been great to work with. Yeah. And we'll leave it at that. It's Matt Harris and Jakub from qoliber, and we're signing off. Magento Association Podcast. Check us out on YouTube, where you get your podcasts, and LinkedIn. Thank you very much.